Here's a question to think about. What kinds of magic from around the world have you heard of? Off the top of my head, I can think of Arthurian magic like invisibility and fire spells, and I've heard of Haitian voodoo, which has some witchcraft, I guess. I wondered about regional magic when playing Valheim and finding a goblin that used magic. She can cast fireballs and protective shields, but I had never heard of magic existing in the Viking Age. It turns out, instead of using potions and herbs, you could perform magic with flax or barley. Okay, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. I died, but not because I'm bad at the game. Let me explain. This big idiot is a berserker, and this one is a vulva. These goblins are OP, and their design is inspired by real Germanic magic, some of which were practiced by Vikings. This goblin is a shaman, and in the Viking Age, shamanism came in a few different forms. The important thing to know is that it is the practice of entering a trance to contact spirits or to travel the spiritual world for a specific purpose. One example is Seder, a shamanic practice which was used to see into the future and manipulate an outcome. With this magic, they could heal the sick, bring good luck, control the weather, beckon animals and fish, curse land, and curse people to induce illness, injury, or death. Seder practitioners were called vulva, so I wasn't insulting the goblin shamans. I was being cultural and sophisticated. And this is a berserker. He's also using magic, but it isn't as obvious because you can't really see it. His strength is essentially magic. However, he isn't using Seder because he's not a sissy. And when I say that, I am still being cultural and sophisticated. Norsemen who practiced shamanism usually did so in the form of totemism. It was very feminine to practice Seder, and if a man practiced it, he would be called ergi, an insult meaning unmanly. Instead, these warrior shamans would draw upon fearless fury and power from their spirit totems, and for some, their spirit animal was a bear, classifying them as berserkers. A description of their might comes from one saga. Odin's men went armorless into battle and were as crazed as dogs or wolves and as strong as bears or bulls. They bit their shields and slew men, while they themselves were harmed by neither fire nor iron. How they entered a trance for their strength is debated, but it seems that fasting, exposure to extreme heat, and ceremonial weapon dances were involved. Some people are convinced that berserkers ate mushrooms to induce their trance. There's a lot to the theory that even goes into the origins of Santa Claus, Rudolph's red nose, and many cultures depicting the Amanita muscaria. But what if they were just really drunk? Some historians believe that contaminated beer altered their consciousness. Instead of hops, beer was sometimes brewed with herbs such as mandrake, mugwort, and Labrador tea, which could have provided pain-suppressing and hallucinogenic effects. Ergot is a type of fungus which has been found in the guts of bog bodies, which I covered in the last video, and it can cause some strong hallucinations. This fungus grew on rotted barley and rye, which means it could have made its way into their beer. It's a strong explanation as to why these goblins are going through the trouble of growing barley. Funny enough, the beer brewers would usually be a shaman. And speaking of which, how did shamans enter their trance to practice Seder? This is a distaff, a tool which is used to spindle flax into linen. Even after working the farm during the day, Norse women would spin flax late into the night. It was so boring and monotonous that they could let their mind just drift. And basically, a woman would get so bored that it altered her consciousness and she could then perform magic. Yes, really. Along with barley, the goblins are growing flax, and with their distaff in hand, they can access Seder magic. Now you know the secret to becoming a great magic practitioner, so don't be ashamed to get blasted off a few rounds of drinks. And should anyone judge you, just quote Randy Marsh.
I am not chugging beer. I'm sampling a flight of gluten-free German lagers with a French wine pairing. It's called a Smorgaswein, and it's elegantly cultural.